The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by the Op, also known as USAopoly.
The Dice Tower, episode 670, Northern Mariana Islands.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, we do the game chat thing, cover a couple of shelf staples, and we'll wrap with a game pie full of trains. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
Choo choo! And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
And Mandi, I can always count on you for the best sound effects. Thank you.
No problem. I just had to do that one. As soon as I heard trains, it had to come out. You may hear it again. Just be prepared.
I would not take that bet. I am fairly confident you probably won't be able to help yourself.
Absolutely not.
Well, it's nice to see you. We are all as we're recording this, in the week after Gen Con Online and kind of recovering. You know, I've been talking to some of my friends in the industry, and it's funny how many people have said that the work to put on an online convention feels just as hefty, just in a different way, as putting on a regular physical convention. And Mandi, you were doing a ton of stuff for Gen Con.
It was crazy. Back to back, I was doing a lot with Renegade games. So a few people, I'm sure, I would have seen me doing a lot of playthroughs for a lot of the games that they have coming out. And I have to tell you, some of them are looking pretty good. So I know, Suzanne, you've played a few, but very excited for that. And then I did one stream for Gen Cant with our friend Ashley. Demeter is what we ended up playing, which was fabulous. But yeah, it was a lot of back-to-back. Okay, I gotta go here. Okay, gotta leave. I have another stream here. And then I ended up doing an interview with Shem Phillips and a few other guests as well on the panel. So it was quite good. So I think it was called Shem Fest, if anybody wants to check that out.
Oh my good gracious. Nice. Well, that's awesome, because we're going to be talking about Viscounts in today's episode. So that's very timely. I gotta say, you mentioned it. You and Ashley did a great playthrough of Demeter, which is a roll and write game, a card-based roll and write game that we reviewed on the podcast just a few episodes ago. And folks, if it sounded interesting to you, here's your chance to play. You can download the player sheet online and then watch the video of Ashley and Mandi playing this game, and you can basically play along, just like people did in real time during the stream. But the nice thing about these games is the stream lives on, the video lives on, and you can just turn it on and play along.
Absolutely.
So if Demeter sounded interesting to you and you wanted to give it a try, hey, you can do that absolutely free and kind of whenever you feel like it, which I think is super cool.
Absolutely.
And really grateful to Sorry We Are French for sharing those score sheets for everybody so they could play along. Well, that is excellent. I'm looking forward to a brief respite before who knows what online convention starts kicking in next. Woo! And I have to just drop this news bit into our chat before we roll into games played, because I have to have a moment of silence.
Oh, no.
For the Transformers TCG.
Oh.
They have announced that they are ending the series. The game is not going to be made anymore. The Titan Masters Attack expansion that just came out is going to be the last Transformers TCG.
Oh, no.
And I am sad about this. I've had a lot of fun with it. I have some close friends locally that are super into it, and it was fun to play with them. It was also fun just to... One of the things about these games that is just fun is just making decks and going through them and assembling them. And with the Transformers, they did so many interesting thematic things with how cards could join together to make Megabots, and how they would flip as they changed format between their vehicle form and their robot form. And there was you could play the simpler element to it, or you could play a more complex game. And it just offered a lot, I think, to people who enjoy card games like that in general, but also, obviously, if you were like me and grew up with the Transformers cartoons and toys, it had a lot of nostalgia wrapped in. So thank you, Transformers TCG. You've been a great game. I'll miss you.
I'm sorry, I have to do it. Transformers, more than meets the eye.
Thank you, Mandi.
Sorry, I had to give it out in a good note there. This episode is brought to you by the Op Games, also known as USAopoly. Today's featured game is Hues and Cues. If you're looking for something fun that the whole family can play, but not like any other game on the market, check out Hues and Cues. Hues and Cues is a vibrant game of colorful communication where players are challenged to make connections to colors through 2-word clues. What hue do you think of when we say apple? The closer a player gets to the target hue out of the 480 on the board, the more points they earn. Hues and Cues is available at the op.games or at your favorite game retailer.
So, what have you been playing lately?
Ring ring! What's that? Oh, hello, let me just pull out my smartphone. Huh?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, that was really bad, but it made me laugh.
No, keep going. I love it. I'm keeping this in the show no matter what you say next, so you better make it professional and good, Mandi.
All right, and it's funny, as I'm saying that, I'm like opening it like it's a flip phone from like 1991 or something.
It's true, she did mime that.
That's terrible. So if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm literally crying as I'm talking about this because it's so funny. But I'll be talking about Smartphone Inc. That is the game that I will be talking about. So I think it was pretty clear from that terrible reference. This is designed...
The game I will be talking about is Smartphone Inc. Smartphone Inc. is the game we'll be discussing.
Yeah, it's one of those nights, everybody. So you're getting to see this all in its glory. Oh, goodness. So Smartphone Inc. is designed by Ivan Lashin and art is by Victor Miller-Gausa. It's published by Cosmodrome Games and Arcane Wonders. It plays 1 to 5 players in about 60 to 90 minutes. So I own the actual physical game, but again, because it's hard for me to get them played, I played this on Tabletopia, but I have played it once in person. This game, I don't have a retail price. I had a hard time finding it because it seems to be sold out everywhere, which is kind of a good thing. And oddly enough, on the Canadian sites, they show the expansion price, but not the base game. So
In the US, the base game's $60.
perfect. So it's probably about the same Canadian. Thank you. I had a hard time finding it. So this is like a network and route building game and simultaneous action selection. So funny story, you look at the box of Smartphone and you're like, I thought it was a party game the first time I saw it. Let's start there. And then I was like, nah, walked by it. Come to find out, hello, it is an economic simulation Euro game. Well, that's just calling my name, isn't it? So the game takes place over 5 rounds. And in the game, basically, you're programming your decisions. So you have these 2 boards that have symbols on them, and then you can get other kind of improvement tiles that you can also use on these boards, which are then revealed, and everybody takes a look at their board, and depending on what you've covered and what's open on your board will determine the types of actions and the strength of those actions that you can take. Some of the things, I mean, the goal of the game, right, is to network and try and get your services out to as many areas of the world as possible, because the board does have areas like Canada, the US, the Caribbean, and other places like that. And they have a listing of the different prices that they'll say, hey, I will take your phone if it's at this price or less, sort of thing. So you do have some options with that, and technologies as well on each area that you can also try and get a hold of, these technologies that you can sell to certain parts of the world. So in the game, even though there are 5 rounds, I guess within those rounds you have 8 phases, which are planning, pricing, producing, development, researching, expansion, selling, and then obviously profits, right? This is after you've sold, what you're going to make, and this is going to be your points. So you really want to try and get those improvements and try to build up your kind of reach as far as you can in order to make more money. So after 5 rounds, the richest player wins. It's pretty straightforward. I thought this game was fairly thematic. I mean, it's about cell phones, and on the board it has things like 4G and Wait, there was another term I learned the other day playing this online. I can't remember what it is now, but it's like that little it's like that little N symbol on your phone. I can't
I don't remember. Yeah, there's the Bluetooth, there's like video games.
Yeah, Wi-Fi. Yeah. So, these are all things you think of when you think of a smartphone. So I thought that was really cool. And, the whole theme of, selling, basically having the either high prices or low prices will determine who you can sell to. And you obviously have to have a building or tower where, you can get this service, much like real life. So a lot of this reminded me of Food Chain Magnate. But less. So for those of you who are like, what's Food Chain Magnate? It's intense. It's super crunchy, but it has the same kind of feel to it, right? Because in that case, you're not trying to sell your burgers and fries and your drinks and all of that sort of thing, but you're basically a company and you're trying to get as much reach and sell to different areas as much as you can to get points. But in Food Chain Magnate, it is definitely a heavier game. It's a bit more punishing than Smartphone, which I find is a little bit more streamlined and it's a bit more simple. So it's easier to teach than a Food Chain Magnate, but the baseline of it is very similar. So I quite enjoy Food Chain Magnate. It's one of my favorites. I also really enjoyed Smartphone. I had a really fun time playing this, and I know we played, Suzanne, and we took different approaches in Smartphone Inc. So for myself, I consistently, and this is just something I decided to do, consistently sold high, which does limit to where you can sell, because you may have a place that says, well, we're only going to take, phones at $3 per, service or phone. And I'm like, well, my price is $8, so then I can't sell there. But then I'm able to kind of hit those spots where other people can't. Versus, what did you do, Suzanne, on your, I guess, what was your strategy?
I was just going low price, but I was going technology heavy, so that even though I was getting into sell first, and then I was trying to build up technology so that I could do that. I hit a problem in our most recent game where I just kind of get my inventory high enough, but oh well.
And these are things you learn, right? And then I played again, and I took the lower price, less technology than I had in my first game, and it still worked out. So I just had certain types of technology, maybe that not everybody had. For example, like if you had a certain symbol that appeared, you would get more products that you could place out. So little things like that. So, and like I said before, it's an easier to teach game than some of the games that are similar to this, and it plays in a shorter amount of time. I actually didn't find it too bad to play in Tabletopia as well. I found it pretty straightforward. So for me, I really liked Smartphone Inc. quite a bit. I'm very much looking to playing the expansion, so I'm hoping on an upcoming episode we can talk about that as well. And I don't know what your experience was with this, Suzanne?
Well, we actually talked about Smartphone Inc. ages ago.
Sure.
Because we had the opportunity to play it on the cruise with an early copy, and before it was picked up by Arcane Wonders, and then I immediately fell in love with it and then sought the ability to play it whenever I could. So I did not have a copy, but I had local friends that did, and I kept on pushing to play it. So I had played it a ton, and we talked about it way back when. And honestly, my appreciation of Smartphone Inc. has not diminished over time or over plays. I flat out love this game. It is going to be a top 100 game for me easily. I have not played the expansion. I'm very, very, very excited to get to try it. But Smartphone Inc., I love the puzzle of making your placards work, and I love the way the economy of the phones work and the technologies work, and even the adjacency of things and how the board scales for player count with retail location. It's got so much in there, but it plays so smoothly. Smart, 100%. Love it. Love it.
So, beep. So that was my ending the call and closing the phone. Yes, closing my, flip phone. Okay.
Hey, with, foldable glass phones, Mandi, it would be appropriate. You're just ahead of the time.
Exactly. See, Smartphone Inc., that's what it does to me.
Let's go. I don't have a segue.
Yeah, that wasn't going anywhere.
That's not going to happen. Let's talk about Deep Vents. Deep Vents is designed by T. Alex Davis and Ryan Lockett. The art is by Ryan Lockett, and it's published by Red Raven Games, because that's Ryan Lockett for you. And of course, Ryan's amazing team with Brenna and people like that as well. It retails for $35. It's in the same size box of like Dingo's Dreams and Artifacts Inc., which if you don't have those games, then you have no point of reference, but it's not like a large square box, right? It's a little bit smaller. And this is a tile laying and engine building game set in the deep waters of the ocean, the mysterious dark ocean. It's one of the things that stands out is when you're looking at the art in this game, it's all of these weird species and things that live right in the deep, deep ocean that you watch science TV shows and they, it's all dark and murky. And then they just have the spotlight of the camera in the submarine and this big creepy fish with bulgy eyes goes past. And from what I can tell, all of the elements, all the critters and creatures on the tiles are real and represented in a really cool way. And of course, Ryan's amazing art style. And Mandi, when you and I were playing this, we both immediately were like, I know that fish from Animal Crossing.
Right? See?
Because we are big dorks. But so that's the setting that you're dealing with. The tiles are kind of these elongated hexagons, and they're going to go into a lineup market. And it's one of those games where you can put money on each tile to skip them. So you can take a tile later on in the lineup and they slide down and blah, blah, blah. The money in this game is called Archaea, which is, again, a thematic element. And basically on your turn, you have the choice between two actions. You can grow, which means you're going to put Archaea on a tile, or you can trigger, which means you're going to remove Archaea from a tile to use its action. So you're either every tile, you're going to either grow it or trigger it. Your choice. And when you trigger it, the actions you can get are things like gaining these seashells that help you defend. You can rearrange your Archaea supply from tiles to your personal supply, which does really matter. You can decimate tiles, which can get you a resource, or you can attack. And when I say you can attack, you can attack. So a lot of like tile laying and engine building sounds very Euro-y, very low conflict. Not in Deep Fence. This is a player interaction Euro, folks. You are going to be attacking, and when you attack your opponents, they lose Archaea from their personal supply. Not from their tiles, but their personal supplies. If you run out of Archaea, you can take a loan. They call it a shortfall token. But if you get 2 shortfalls, guess what? You are eliminated from the game. So the game lasts a certain number of rounds or the last player standing. It is a fully player elimination game. Now, what I can say is that that's often a big turnoff, especially to Euro players, right? That shortfall token system really does help mitigate that. You're knocked down, but you're not out. You can pay them back. These shortfall tokens really do serve as a loan that you see in a lot of other games where you can pay it back as you build up again. And so it works. I've played a few games and have had it end by rounds, and I've played a few games where it ended by last player standing. So it felt fine for a player elimination game. The attacking can be brutal. The attacking can be absolutely brutal. And you are 100% paying attention to what other people have on their board and trying to pick your moment, trying to realize, hey, they're going to attack me. I better build up my defenses. I better make a move to rearrange my Archaea so I have some stuff that I can defend with. The seashells can help diminish the attack power. Sometimes they seemed helpful. Sometimes they didn't. I guess you would have to build a better engine around it. It's just not my play style, so I never really did. If you like tile laying and engine building, it's got that for sure. If you like player interaction in a Euro mechanical game, hello, right? You don't get a lot of those in the market right now. My biggest complaint about the game is the iconography. Mm-hmm. And that is because on these tiles, there are a ton of icons. The icons are used consistently, and once you understand them and you understand the tile structure, it's not that bad. But there is a learning curve here, and you are going to be referencing the tile reference fairly often, even in your second or third play, because one side is like the cost, one side is where you would, when you're growing, the Archaea is indicated, and then one side is the icons that help trigger. That's that engine building, because adjacency matters as you're laying them out on your tableau. So the iconography can be a little brutal in this game. I understand why it works that way, and it's fully language independent from a play point of view, which I think is something they were going for and is a nice thing. But, be aware. From, An enjoyment review. I like Deep Vents. It's another solid game in that box size from Red Raven. And I personally am excited by the idea of kind of a Euro-mechanical game that has player interaction. Now, Mandi, you played it at least once with me.
I was one of the people that had a hard time with the iconography. I think I kept, let me just check the book. Okay, let me just check the book. Like, it wasn't 100% clear for me. It was just having to remember it. It was a lot. But other than that, I actually liked the game. I like the darker look of the game because I know generally with Ryan's games, they're, very happy looking or bright colored,
Sure.
and which I think is great. But I actually did really enjoy the darker appeal of this game, and maybe the art was drawing me in, but I liked the gameplay, and I also don't like that kick out, someone is out of the game mechanic. How many times would we like borderline? There were a couple of us that were like,
I don't remember.
Right, back and forth of almost out,
Yeah.
okay, we're out. So nobody was sitting out for a long period of time, which I thought was really good. If someone got out, it was shortly thereafter that the game finished. So I enjoyed it, and I look forward to more plays of this one.
So, Deep Vents.
All right, earlier we talked about Gen Con, and one of the games that I was able to be a part of during Gen Con was Viscounts of the West Kingdom. So if you're wondering, well, wait a second, Viscounts of the West Kingdom, I believe we've talked about Paladins of the West Kingdom on this podcast. So Viscounts is in the storyline. This is designed by Shem Phillips and S.J. McDonald. Art is by Mahajlo Dmitrievsky. And it's published by Garfield Games. It's 1 to 4 players in 60 to 90 minutes, and it retails for about $55, I believe Canadian and US. So in this game, there's a fun rondel in the game, in the little middle of the board, and some set collection happens. And there are a few other things. This game is definitely a little bit different than Paladins, and we'll talk a little bit about weight-wise and where that place is. And we'll go from there. So in Viscounts, maybe I should give a little background of a couple of things, not too crazy long explanation, but just an idea. You've got a player board. That's going to be a lot of focus for you where you're playing your cards. This is where your town folks are going to go. And this is where symbols on these cards are really important because depending on the amount of symbols you have on your card, that will allow you to take certain types of actions on the board. And then you have the really big board where it has that kind of rondel in the middle that I was talking about. And then you have your worker that you're going to be moving around the board based on the card that you play and how many spaces that's going to go. This game, you will notice that the cards have a lot of symbols on them that can be used for multiple ways. So, you flip a card over, you're going to have one that, hey, this is how much it would cost to move if it comes out of your hand, but this same card that's on the board, this is how much it's going to cost you with that same number. So there's a lot of that in the game on a card. Different areas can sometimes be used for different things. There are different ways that you can kind of decide to get points in this game. And I'm probably not using the technical terms, so I apologize. But there are things like, collecting the books or scrolls. I'm not exactly sure of the proper terminology. There's also, I think this is one that I liked, and I think Suzanne liked this in her game, where you got to kind of work that rondel in the center. So that was an action that you could take, and I believe it was the fleur-de-lis action. See, I know that one because we use that in Canada, so And then you also had a building action, things like that. So depending on where you went on the board would depend on what type of action you were taking and what part of the board. You also were allowed to get more townsfolk because you wanted to build up your deck with better, stronger abilities. So you definitely wanted to pick up townsfolk that were in the area, but you could also dismiss them and they could help you within an action as well. So there were a few things that you could do there. The game actually ends when either the deed deck or the debt deck ends and basically get another kind of full round, and then the game ends. So for those who are not familiar with those decks, because you do see those in Paladins of the West Kingdom, the debt deck, ideally you don't want to get dead cards, but if you get them flipped over, they're points. If not, it's negative points at the end of the game. Deed cards they're the red cards in the game. They give you points, but if you flip them over, they give you even more points. So it's not a bad thing necessarily. So that's just a kind of a basic overview of what happens in the game. There's a lot going on, but if you've played Paladins and Architects, some of the other ones, I don't feel it's much more. It's a lot at first, but I find the iconography in this game very clear. So versus where we were talking about deep vents, this one I could look at the board and go, yeah, okay, I can figure that out, and that made sense. And I think some of the other players that we were playing with found the same thing as well. This game sits, in my opinion, above Architects and below Paladins weight-wise. So right in the middle of those two. I find Paladins is definitely on the heavier side versus Architects, which is slightly on the lighter side. Now, I understand that they're different games, but once you play it, you can say, oh, you know what? I do feel the kind of weight here. That's about where it sits. I really enjoyed this game. I think I still like Paladins better, not to say that it's not good in its own right, but I did enjoy it. There's a lot going on. It takes some time to get accustomed to it, but once you do, it's the same thing over and over again. And when I say that, it's just easier to remember. I don't mean that it's boring. It's just easier to remember once you do it. I took very different approaches in this game. So I tried the approach that Suzanne had done in her game where she used that rondelle. I'm like, I'm going to try this. Now, the first time I played it, I think we played it a little wrong, but figured it out because, it kind of had this weird thing where okay, how did it go? It had something like where you had like 3 workers of your own on the first level.
Right, and then they expand out and up.
Right, so one goes to the right, one goes to the left, one goes up. And then you get a bonus if there's something on that step. You do not do this when it gets to the second level. You actually, as soon as it hits 3, one just goes up to the 3rd level, and they stay on the 3rd level, and they're going to get scored at the end of the game. So that's where I made a little boo-boo last time, and I kind of did it like the first level. I did that on the second level, and that shouldn't have happened. But once we figured it out, I thought that was a moneymaker right there. So that's a really great strategy to take. The books, collecting those, I think, are also another good way to get points. Like, there are a variety of ways for you to get points. This game is lengthy. It's funny. Did you find it the same length as Paladins?
No. I think it's lighter and shorter than Paladins.
Okay. Which I agree with. I think the first game does take a bit of time to kind of cover everything, but you're right. I think in the end it's shorter. I liked this game with 2, and I liked this game with 3. I don't know if I love it at 4. It's not terrible, but I think 2, in my opinion, 2 or 3 is a sweet spot. Mm-hmm. Ideally. But that's like any other of these types of games. Playing at a full player count can make it long. That's just how it is. I think those are kind of all the main things I wanted to talk about in the game. Overall, I really liked it. I liked the fact that the symbology was carried through. So if you had played some of the other games, you're like, oh, I recognize that because it was in the other game that I played. That appeals to me because now I'm not having to relearn a whole rule set. It's familiar. So I'm starting off with a good footing. So Viscounts of the West Kingdom, for me, it's a winner. I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. What about you, Suzanne? What did you think?
For sure. I've had some ups and downs with this entire series, quite frankly, and some I haven't really enjoyed. But with Paladins and now Viscounts, it's on a huge upswing for me. I very much like Paladins, but I realized, and I was talking to a friend about this just last night because I played it again just last night, was Paladins is more of a situational game. It's going to be a weekend game for me, or a convention game for me. Viscounts is a game night game for me. If I feel like playing Viscounts, especially if you know how to play, I can throw it on the table after work and knock out a game of it, especially once you know. It's shorter and it's lighter. It's still definitely meaty, and the teach takes a little bit of time. But one of the things, and you mentioned it earlier, but I think it's worth highlighting, the player board has a perfect turn order reference on it, and once you understand what each of those icons means, every turn, you're just visually walking through it. And it makes it so easy to remember what you have to do, to not miss a step, and to be able to plan. That little track, I think I've played it 5 times now. I reference it all the time, and it works like a dream. I very much enjoy Viscounts. I've played games where I work the castle strategy in the center. I have not played the building strategy, but I got crushed by it just last night, and I saw that work beautifully. I'd love to try the debt gathering and flipping, the corruption track strategy where you push for collisions.
Ooh, I love that
one.
There's
so many different things that you can focus on and work on building your deck around. And I think that that's so appealing. So Viscounts is a huge winner for me. Top 2 of the series with Paladins for sure. And with Paladins and then Viscounts, I'm so excited to see what comes out next in the series.
Absolutely.
All right, to wrap up some games played, we will swing to the lighter side, and I want to talk about a roll and write game.
Of course.
It's that time, people! Yay! Am I the only one excited about it? Okay, well, sorry. But this one has kitties.
Oh my goodness.
Aw, kitties. Cat Sudoku. It's Kitty Sudoku. Yay.
Okay.
Now, this is a game that is currently, at the time of this recording and at the time that this episode airs, it's actually available on Kickstarter. And I actually imported it a couple of years ago, I think. I've had it. And when I saw that it was on Kickstarter and I realized I hadn't talked about it before, I was really, really excited. This isn't a paid placement or anything like that. And I have had the published edition for quite a while, but it's just a good opportunity to chit-chat about it. Cat Sudoku is designed by Tate Wu, and the art is by Kayama, and it's published by Sunrise Tornado Game Studio. Basically, when you open the box, you're going to have 4 different little pads. There are 4 different season sheets. The rules all apply the same, but each sheet gives you a slightly different challenge, and some of them are definitely more difficult than others. So there's a nice little bit of variability in the box. You get 4 dice, and it's a pretty straightforward roll and write game in that the 4 dice are rolled. There is this little strip on top of the player sheets that's your wild tracker. Depending on the situation, you can assign one of the numerals on the dice to be the wild for the turn. And then players write the values of the dice into their sheets. The sheets kind of look almost more like a little weird crossword than a Sudoku sheet because there's gaps. Like you've got this grid where you're writing in numbers, but there's like little sections that are kind of set off. And those are really, really important from a strategy point of view. Because what happens is you're going to do this until everybody's sheet is full. Everybody has the exact same number of turns. Everything is all equal. The game ends, and then you score. And the way you score this game is you count how many points you lose. Because you start with 100 points. And then you are going to count the instances when you have duplicated a number in a row or a column, right? Because it's Sudoku. You can't have duplicates in a row or a column or in a box in traditional Sudoku. So you lose points for dupes in columns and rows, but only within a quote-unquote section. So if there's a gap that's breaking off a little area, it's okay for you to duplicate in that area and the area to the left of it. It makes more sense visually when you look at it. And then you also lose points for the same numeral in diagonal positions from each other, in a diagonal line from each other. So again, it's kind of that mapping Sudoku puzzle. Like you can definitely see that Sudoku element in this game for sure. It's that freeform thing where as numerals pop up, you can put them wherever you want, right? You're just filling up your sheet as you go. The rules are very, very simple. I basically taught you how to play the game when I was just talking about it here. And really, Cat Sudoku is a lovely little roll and write. It's definitely the kind that you can play. I've played it solo. You can play it with other people. You can play it with a lot of other people, really, if you want to. And I like it in terms of a roll and write game, a non-traditional roll and write game that can appeal to traditional puzzle players because you really do see that Sudoku heart in it. So like my dad, who's never played a hobby game in his life, I think he could play this because he loves doing Sudoku puzzles. So I love that the heart of the puzzle is in this game. I love that there are 4 different sheets that definitely have variable difficulty to them.
Right.
And the background, the art really has nothing to do with the game. It's just in the background of the sheet, but it's adorable. It's cute little kitties through the seasons. So Cat Sudoku, roll and write game, I very much enjoy it. And if you are interested, you can definitely check it out on Kickstarter now if you want to.
Which is what I'm doing right now. Oh, well, maybe I should be doing this off air. I'm so sorry.
Let's discuss those older games that will always have a place in our collections with shelf stapling.
It has been a while. I have to do one of these blowing the dust off the shelf because it has been a while since we have done a shelf staple. So I finally have one. I swear, it's been forever. I've got one for you. So my pick, it's not as old as Suzanne's pick, but here we are. I've decided to go. Oh, that sounded really bad. You know what I mean. Libertalia, which was published in 2012. So it's not super old, but, it's not super new. This is designed by Paolo Mori, and art is by Ben Carre and Stéphane Gantiez. And it's published by Asmodee. It's for 2 to 6 players, and it plays in about 40 minutes. And this is, I guess you'd say, it's a hand management type game, and it's basically like 18 rounds of card drawing. So the game happens over 3 campaigns, and I'm not going to every detail here, but during each campaign, players will resolve 6 days of looting. So basically from the sunrise phase through the night phase, and then 1 day of rest during which all of your riches will be totaled. During the 6 first days of the campaign, each player secretly plays a player character card from your hand onto the ship. So there's a board with a ship that you're going to play your cards in order to try and get your share of the booty. I don't know why I said it like that, but you know what I mean. The things, all the things. During the day of rest, the riches of each player are totaled, and then it's on a score track, and then you prepare for the next campaign. When all 3 campaigns have been played, the richest player is the winner. And that was a big thing for me in this game, because we get a hand of cards, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think we get the same cards. Mm-hmm. It's just, and then they have different number values on them, and then depending on what number you play will depend on where they sit on the ship, but it's one of those ones you pick a card, it's face down, and then everybody reveals, put them on the ship, and then you resolve, because they all have, different abilities or things that they do, which can, kind of mess somebody else up or make you go ahead of somebody else. So, it matters. But I really liked this game. I'm not a huge fan of pirate themed games, but for some reason, Libertalia, I'm like, I don't care. Maybe because it really could be anything, but the game itself, I really enjoyed this. And it's been a few years since I've played it, but it's still on my shelf, which is a really good sign. It means, and now us talking about it, I actually want to go and play it again right now. Libertalia is one that I think I consistently see on a lot of people's list as a game. You can get into it. It makes sense. It's an easy to teach. It's just an overall really good game. I don't know if a lot of people play this with families. I don't see why you wouldn't. Maybe some of the content people might find a little too much with the pirate theme, but I don't find it an overly complicated game, and it's a lot of fun. Some of our games have gotten a little mean because people just really focus on just getting somebody out. But, I mean, it's all laughter at the end. So Libertalia, for me, is my shelf staple this week.
I love it. And I love games that have that card selection. Another one is Mission Red Planet,
yes,
right? Where you all have the same cards. And I just think that's such a wonderful mechanism. Also, Rob Davio's Ship Shape has that mechanism as well, and I love it there too. So it's just one of my favorite mechanisms. I'm glad you brought it up. It's been a while since I played it.
Yeah.
Well, Mandy was right. I'm going even older. The gaming granny is here to go back in time.
It's like the Crypt Keeper.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
Sorry.
And honestly, this is the game that put Michael Schott on my list. Now, he had done a couple of other games earlier, including the really well-known Web of Power, but Coloretto is the game that made me go, who is this designer and how do I keep track of them? Because this is amazing. Coloretto was actually published in 2003. And Mandy, when I noticed that in BGG, I just went, whoa. And somehow 2003 feels like not that long ago, but also an eon ago.
Right?
Time is a weird thing.
Wow.
I mean, it's 17 years old.
That's crazy.
Designed by Michael Schott. Art is by Guido Favaro and Oksana Svitsin and Michael Schott. And it's primarily published through Rio Grande and Abacus Spiele. This is one of those games. It's just a very small card box. It's just a card game. Simple rules, but endlessly entertaining gameplay. And as far as I'm concerned, it belongs on everybody's game shelf, along with games like No Thanks. The deck is primarily comprised of cards with chameleons on them, different colored chameleons. Mm-hmm. And there's 8 different colors in the game. There are patterns on them, so they are double-coded for color vision deficiency. And there are some wild cards, and then there are some cards that are just worth 2 points. And what happens in the game is that you have 2 actions you choose from. You either top deck, you just draw the top card from the deck and choose to place it in one of the columns. Or you can take all of the cards in a column. Once you take a card column, then you're out for the round, and then the game continues until everybody has taken a column, and then you move on to the next round. At the end of the game, you are going to score points based on the color sets that you've managed to collect. So the more pink cards you have, great. The more yellow cards you have, great. Wilds can count towards any color, and you don't have to decide until the end of the round, and so you know where it can be most effective for you. The twist is, one of the twists is, right, you can only score 3 colors. So if I have 5 colors in my tableau, I get to pick which one to score, but the remaining sets are going to score me negative points instead. So you really want to be aware of that. But really the game is in that, where do you choose to put that card? And when do you choose to take that column? It feels like luck because you're just drawing the top card. But it's one of those things, it's like, oh, I'm collecting gold. And then you draw the top card and it's gold. Well, where do you put it? Because you want to get it, but how is it going to make it through the whole round to get back to you so you can take it? So do you put it in the suboptimal pile? Do you mix it in with other colors? It's just a fascinating little decision-making process. It's akin to the I split, you choose mechanism, which is another gaming mechanism that I just adore. And again, for such a simple rules game in such a small deck of cards, Coloretto, 17 years later, I think why when I looked at 2003 and realized the game was 17 years old, I think I was surprised because it doesn't feel 17 years old. It stands the test of time. It is 100% a shelf staple. And if you have not had the pleasure of trying Coloretto, I obviously highly recommend it.
I like this game. I'm terrible at it. I don't know why I'm so bad at it, but I really liked it. And I think I saw like an updated version. The colors were really vibrant and really pretty in this game, but it's one that you always hear people speaking positively about it. So Coloretto, definitely a good choice.
Thank you.
Order up!
And now, it's time to order up a slice of game pie.
It's pie time! Yay, pie! And Mandi, what's our game pie today?
Choo, choo, chuck, 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 choo, choo.
Ooh, we got some chugga-chuggas in there, too.
I know, right? if you haven't figured it out already, it's about trains.
That's right, folks. Today we're going to serve up 3.14, 3-ish games about trains. And when we were going through ideas for game pie and we hit on trains, we started looking at BGG, of course, and looking at all the train games. And this got hard. So personally, we had to draw a few extra boundaries. We had to add some extra crust on this pie. This will not include 18xx games, and it will not include roll and write games. And that's the specific pie we're serving up today. I have to be very careful because,
well, as you started talking about the pie, I was thinking, the pie, when you just have it, it's like completely covered. There's a few little air pockets, but this is like, that's that type of pie. It's not the pie where you leave the little holes and like little leaf holes in the pie and the air comes through. No, we had to shut that down. Sorry, that's what I was thinking about when you said crust.
We really like to stretch this analogy to its fullest limits, folks.
Absolutely. Why not?
Mandi, what's your first slice today?
All right. The first one, and I apologize, it's been a long time since I've played this game, but I do remember the feeling of when I played, and I was like, what? It's so good. First Class, All Aboard the Orient Express. So
wait, is that... I just call it First Class. Is that the whole name?
So when I looked it up, I thought it was First Class. I'm like, I better look it up just to be sure. No, that is the official name. So I learned something new about First Class. There is more in that title. So there you go. And First Class is a card game where you're basically trying to build up your train of cars, or I guess they're train cars. I don't know if that's the technical word for it. And basically you're getting to fulfill contracts on your route. And I know there's something about a conductor. And
right, your conductor moves down, and that determines what you can score and stuff like that.
Right. And
it's like full of modules, right? There's so many modules in First Class, too, which is so cool.
I still haven't played through all of them. I played through a lot of them, so that's something I'd like to work toward. But the card sizes are actually rather interesting too. Is it like
It's the mini
Takanoko
card.
size?
Yeah.
So they're smaller cards, and I like the organizer. I know I'm getting way deep into this, but first class, all aboard the Orient Express. This one, if you don't have it, at least you should give it a try. I really enjoy this one.
I adore this game. I absolutely, and the only reason why it's not on my list is because I saw it was on your list. And there's so many good train games.
This is tough. What about you, Suzanne?
First up for me is Railroad Revolution. And most train games fit into a route building kind of game and or a stock management game, right? Well, one thing I like about Railroad Revolution is it adds in worker placement with that whole route building and everything. And that just clicks for me. This is not a super heavy game. Certainly, this is not Ticket to Ride. It's a massive step up from Ticket to Ride, so I don't want to be misleading on that front. But compared to a lot of What's Your Game games, this is definitely on the lighter side. And that just really appeals to me. Route building, worker placement, there's actually a lot going on in it. It just works together as a whole puzzle for me in a nice kind of Viscounts. Viscounts way to game. There's a reference that is completely useless. But yeah, Railroad Revolution, a really great train game.
I forgot about this one. This is a great game. Okay, I know. Oh, geez, I got to pull that one out too.
Right, there's so many good ones.
So many on the list. Okay, well, I've now kind of made a veer off into another track here because this is a slightly heavier train game, and Tramways is the next game that I want to talk about, and. Yeah, Tramways is a brain burner. And I think that's probably, I was like, oh, it hurts the brain. It's so good. And Tramways, you're trying to, I think the whole thing is happiness, right? You're trying to make your passengers happy. You want to get them to their destinations without making them take too long to get there. So basically too many routes and, making sure it is a pleasurable experience to get to their destination. So Tramways is a tricky one because, you can use other people's rails, but then you're giving them points. So you want to try and create your own rails, but people have a way of kind of blocking it. So you're not able to do it. And I don't know, this is a game that really gets my brain going, even though I get frustrated because I'm horrible sometimes at it. But I love the cards, using them as like actual tickets. You have to decide, am I going to use it as a ticket for this or, the actual to extend your rail. So there are a lot of decisions that happen. And I think it's only like 3 actions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's very tight.
Right? It's so tight. So Tramways for me, magnifique, love, love, love.
And see, it was so important we put those parameters, right? Because I cannot include Tramways, the engineer's workbook, which takes that formula and creates a puzzly roll and write game. Okay. Oh, I'm cheating. Okay.
But you know what? You just reminded me. Oh my goodness. With all of this lockdown happening, I just realized that my Tramways, the book that you're talking about, I left it in my work cabinet. Oh, sucks.
Sacre bleu.
I'm a little upset about that. What about you? What's your next one?
Next up for me is a game that we reviewed just recently, but this is how much I've been enjoying it, and that's Mini Express. I also I could have put, quite frankly, any of Mark Garrett's train games, Mini Rails, or Steamrollers on this list, but no roll and write games. Mini Express just does a great job of distilling down a stock and route building game in a very simple way, but you still have those juicy, difficult decisions. And it's working for me. It's really, really working for me. And I've enjoyed it so much. And I keep on playing it, even though we've reviewed it, which is always a good sign. So Mini Express, so good.
Yeah, that's a very good choice. And I also would have had that on my list. But, well, we're limiting that one. So excellent. Oh, goodness. This is one we've played together, Suzanne, on the Underground. And I think this is not a game that's super new. I think the version that I have is new, but I believe it was out.
Yeah, it's an old game. That's a updated version, right? Okay. A second edition.
That's what I thought. So, yeah, we've played this virtually, digitally, I should say, online. And this was a pleasant surprise. I like the fact that you get a couple types of rails, so basically 2 different colors that you can place on the board. And I love when we start interacting with each other. Where you're like, I think this happened a couple of times in our game. Suzanne puts down a track. Oh, if you were thinking of going there, you can't. Gee, you got to find a different way to go. But definitely trying to find a path that's going to get you the most points. And you're like, oh, that's like every other game. I just found this one was very simple. It wasn't overly complicated, but it did require you to really map out or kind of plan your sections properly, or you're basically giving points away to other people. And you only have so many actions, right? Before the game is like, oh my goodness, it's almost over, and I still have places I want to go to try and, complete these objectives. So on the Underground, for me, I really enjoyed it. Now, I've only played the one map. I think is that the London map? I have not played the other side yet, so I'm very excited to try that one next.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like about On the Underground is it's hyper focused on the route building.
Yes,
which is there's no stock market, and there's kind of a pick up and deliver thing in a way from delivering that one passenger. But yeah, I great. We're so in sync on this.
We are on fire. It's amazing.
Another relatively new game, but one that is definitely worth making this, is Imperial Spells and Steam. This one, I love the action selection. I really like how the delivery works with how your trains get spread out and you can pick up resources and deliver them for points. But really, it's that train car system where you're moving down along this board that you have and choosing your actions, making choices about whether you pay to continue or not, and how you time making a delivery, watching what other people are doing because you have to grab that resource before they take it, all in the magical setting that kind of adds a little bit of flair to it. I've had a lot of fun with it. It can be very busy, but it just works for me, and I've very much enjoyed Imperial.
This one was great, and it's funny, I didn't even think of this as a train type game, but it totally is. It's maybe the setting's a little different, but it is, and I quite enjoyed this one. So again, another fantastic pick. So if y'all haven't tried it, you should. I think it's on, is it on one of the digital platforms? I believe it is.
Maybe TTS or something like that?
Yeah, possibly. So you should all give it a try if you have an opportunity. Well, my last one on my list, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is last, is Russian Railroads. And this has been around for a little while. I don't think it's super old. Funny story, I have Russian railroads, I have German railroads, I have American railroads. Yeah, I've only played Russian railroads. Yeah, we'll work on that.
Ooh, I think one of those is out of print, and you could sell it for some buku bucks.
Ooh, I know. It's funny, the American railroads one was just like a little promo one they had. I think I got it at BGG. They were selling it, so I don't even know if that one's still around. But I haven't played it yet, so one to try. Russian Railroads, it's exactly the name. It tells you it's about trains, but I remember this one being, you have your player board and you're really trying to push those tracks up in order to get certain types of points depending on the track that they're working with. There's a lot of math happening in this game because you're constantly calculating, right? Every kind of scoring round. But the engineers were my favorite. I found the engineers were great. If you can get your hands on some of those good ones, they could really rack up some nice points for you. So Russian Railroads was one of the ones that I played quite a bit. So anybody listening to this on social media, I know there's a few people like, oh yeah, I remember playing that with Mandi on, Boîte de Jeu or one of those kind of sites. So Russian Railroads for me, ding ding, winner, love it.
And to wrap up our game pie, I'm bringing up North American Railways. And this is designed by Pierre Sylvester. And I think Pierre is one of the under-recognized by name designers out there. He's designed a huge number of games, and I've realized how many of them I really, really like, including The Lost Expedition, that cooperative solo play game that's so good. And North American Railways is a card-only game that just has a really nice system. It's a stock game, so this is one of those stock games. And it, just like On the Underground focused on the routing, right? Here you have North American Railways that is really all about the stocks. And there's no kind of pathing element to it. But there's a really fascinating way with how the cards get stolen. There's a really fascinating way with how the train cards get purchased and how they cycle through the market and how their value shifts. And it's all in just a very small box because it's all card-based play. And I think that that's incredibly clever and a really uncommon take on the train games. So North American Railways, definitely a wonderful little gem of a game as well.
I don't think I've played this one, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you'd like it, Mandi. I
yeah,
think you would.
Maybe I'll add that to my list.
So there you have it, folks. A game pie, a train pie. We hope that you have enjoyed it, and let us know if you think that there is a train game that should have been on this list that we missed. Because what Mandi and I realized as we were coming up with this, there's a lot of good train games out there.
So many good train games.
And of course, if you have any other comments or questions, you are always welcome to send us a message. You can reach me at Suzanne@dicetower.com.
And you can reach me at Mandi, that's Mandi with an I, at dicetower.com.
As always, thank you everyone for letting us join you for another podcast. It is a pleasure and privilege to be part of your extended gaming family. Next episode, 671. What, Mandi?
Yes.
Mandi's joining Tom and Eric for Question Palooza.
Oh boy, I'm scared.
Oh, Mandi, I cannot wait. I'm so excited to listen to this one. So make sure to tune in for that fabulous upcoming episode, everyone. Until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassal.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandi, and Eric with assistance from Roy Canaday and Rob Searing. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at podcast@dicetower.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, everyone, it is that time again for Two Truths and a Lie. So I'm going to go first and reveal what the lie is from last episode. So I still own 100 CDs, I still own 100 cassettes, and I still own 100 records. If you said that I still own 100 cassettes is the lie, that would be correct. I think I have a couple floating around, including my Gem and the Holograms, Glitter and Gold, when I had Glitter and Gold.
Oh my goodness, do you really?
I kid you not. There's a white cassette too. So Suzanne, what about you?
Last episode I said I had a slip and slide as a kid, I had a backyard pool as a kid, and I had a dozen Super Soakers as a kid. And the lie is that I had a dozen Super Soakers. I bought my kids a bunch of Super Soakers because I never had them as a child. I never had the really great water squirters. So.
Oh, yeah. I hear you. I had the little plastic ones, so I totally get that. All right, new for this episode, my family gives me a lot of nicknames, so let's see if you can pinpoint the lie. My family has given me the nickname Queen of the Grill. My family has given me the nickname Patty Pie Maker. And my family has given me the nickname Seam in Distress.
Well, I'll tell you what, whichever one's the lie is what I'm going to start calling you.
Great.
New for me this episode, I said, I like Jolly Ranchers, I like Dum Dum Lollipops, and I like Lifesavers.
Delicious choices. Good luck, everyone.